Hi, my name is Phil Volker, and I want to thank you for joining me on this short professional development on ethics and worldview. I made this presentation for my Education 633 class that I'm taking at Liberty University. There'll be a point where I want you to stop the presentation and have a discussion. If you're watching with this with a group, that'll be great. If not, find a friend or a family member. Dog and cats are really good listeners too. I want to start out by sharing a verse with you. This verse has been part of my life since childhood, and it's Colossians 3:23. Work willingly at whatever you do, as though you were working for the Lord rather than for people. New Living Translation. The word ethics is not in this verse at all. Ethics is what this verse is all about. When I'm teaching, I'm not teaching to make sure my principal gives me a good evaluation at the end of the year. I'm teaching like the Lord is my boss and that He gave me this job because He did. This doesn't just apply to teaching. When my adult children are struggling at work or having concerns with coworkers, I'll remind them of that verse in Colossians. According to Smaldino and Donaldson, the Association for Educational Communication Technology recently added ethical practice to their definition of educational technology, and in 2016 created a detailed code of ethics for their members to follow, and as a mechanism to keep other members accountable. The document breaks ethics into three categories: commitment to the individual, commitment to society, and commitment to the profession. Here are some examples of the code of ethics that AECT put together. I'm going to just read a couple from each one of the three categories that I mentioned, but I encourage you to look up this document here below. It's a PDF where you can read all of the code of ethics, or you can refer to them in my reference section. As far as individuals, the Code of Ethics says to avoid content that promotes stereotypes and also to value individuals' rights and opportunities. In the society area, some of the ethics are to promote positive environmental impacts and don't use privileges for private gain. And finally, in the profession section, inform users of copyright law, and we'll be looking at that in a few moments, and also report any illegal or unethical conduct of other members. Just as we learn so many things from the Bible with stories, I want you to grab that friend or pet and discuss these two scenarios. I'll read the first one, then pause the video and discuss. The school librarian believes a teacher is almost certainly disregarding copyright in reproducing instructional materials and distributing them to students. Are there some ways in which the professional obligation to intervene can produce outcomes that are positive? So stop the video and think about that one. How about this second scenario? A principal agrees to volunteer teachers in their classes so that instructional software can be tested. One of the two algebra teachers objects to using computer games for learning. How far can the principal go with this idea without becoming coercive? Stop and think about that one. Discuss it with a friend. Well, I hope you had a good discussion, or at least thought about how the librarian and the principal could deal with those two scenarios. Here's a question that's been pondering people for generations. Can we have ethics without religion? I'm not going to have time to read this quote to you, but I want you to stop the video and read it for yourself and think about how Graham is using the analogy of planets and deciding what's a planet to morals and what's considered moral behavior. I do want to share these last two quotes, though, as regarding whether religion is necessary for ethics. McKay in 2015 said, "Thus some aspects of religion may promote some aspects of immorality, just as others serve to suppress or obstruct the same or different aspects. In short, discussing whether religion is a force for good, we must be very clear what we mean by religion and what we mean by good." Now, what he's saying there is just because something is called a religion, it doesn't mean that it's going to lead us to ethics or goodness. And then finally, one last quote, Romans 1:20, one of my favorite verses. "For ever since the world was created, people have seen the earth and sky. Through everything God made, they can clearly see His invisible qualities, His eternal power and His divine nature, so that they have no excuse for not knowing God." New Living Translation, Romans 1:20. That tells me that God's invisible qualities are shown all around us. So to say that civilizations can find compassion and fairness without a God isn't true, because the world he created, the earth and the sky, are yelling out his attributes. So whether they realize it or not, societies that develop ethical codes do so through God's eternal power and divine nature. Here's my list of references. Thanks so much for being part of this professional development on ethics and worldview.